Imagine finding a 1965 United States quarter in your pocket, an old coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but could have an interesting story hidden in its date, condition, or unusual variety. Could this quarter really be worth more than its 25-cent face value? And why do collectors pay special attention to certain 1965 Washington quarters? Welcome back to Coin Study, where we explore fascinating United States coins, their history, minting details, varieties, condition, and collectible value. If you enjoy discovering old coins and learning what makes certain pieces valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on the notification bell, because today's coin has an especially important place in American coin history. Today we are looking closely at the 1965 United States quarter dollar, commonly known as the Washington quarter. Some people may call it a Liberty quarter because of the familiar American imagery on United States coinage, but the 1965 quarter actually features George Washington on the obverse. The coin was designed by John Flanagan and belongs to the modern-clad Washington quarter series. What makes 1965 particularly interesting is that it represents a major turning point in American coinage. Before 1965, circulating Washington quarters were made from 90% silver and 10% copper. But in 1965, the United States Mint changed the composition of the quarter to a copper-nickel-clad material because of the rising demand for silver and the shortage that was affecting coin production. The United States Mint says that the 1965 quarter became copper-nickel-clad, replacing the silver composition used on earlier circulating quarters. Production of the new quarter began on August 23, 1965, and the coins entered circulation later that year. United States Mint. That means the 1965 quarter is historically important even when it is not particularly rare. Now let's take a closer look at the coin itself. On the obverse, you see the portrait of George Washington facing left. Around him are the words Liberty and In God We Trust, along with the date 1965. The design was based on the work of sculptor John Flanagan and had been used on Washington quarters since 1932. Turn the coin over and you see the famous American eagle. The eagle is shown with its wings spread, with United States of America around the top and quarter dollar at the bottom. The design represents the United States during a period when the country was making an important transition in its circulating coinage. The 1965 quarter measures approximately 24.3 millimeters in diameter and weighs about 5.67 grams. It has a reeded edge and consists of outer layers containing 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper center. PCGS. And here is one of the biggest surprises about the 1965 quarter. If you are looking for a mint mark on a normal 1965 quarter, you probably will not find one. That's right. The absence of a mint mark is normal. During this period, the United States Mint temporarily suspended mint marks. Philadelphia and Denver produced circulating quarters, while San Francisco produced special 1965 coins for the special mint set. Because of the mint mark suspension, regular 1965 quarters do not carry the familiar D, P, or S mint mark that collectors might expect. This is extremely important because many people see a 1965 quarter without a mint mark and immediately assume that it must be rare. But a missing mint mark on a normal 1965 quarter is not automatically an error. It is part of the standard design and production history of the coin. PCGS. The regular 1965 quarter had an enormous production. PCGS lists a mintage of 1,819,717,540 for the regular 1965 issue. With more than 1.8 billion produced, the standard circulated 1965 quarter is not considered a rare coin. PCGS. So why do collectors still search for it? The answer is condition, varieties, special strikes, and unusual errors. Let's start with circulated condition. If your 1965 quarter has been used heavily for decades, it may show scratches, contact marks, worn details, and dull surfaces. A typical circulated example may be worth little more than face value, although collector interest can give certain examples a modest premium. PCGS notes that circulated 1965 quarters may trade around a couple of dollars in some collectible markets, depending on condition and other factors. PCGS. This means you should not assume that every 1965 quarter is worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. But there is a major difference between an ordinary circulated coin and a truly exceptional example. The higher the grade, the more interesting the coin can become. Collectors examine the surfaces very carefully. On the obverse, pay close attention to Washington's forehead, cheek, and neck, as well as the open fields around the portrait. On the reverse, collectors look at the eagle's chest, wings, and surrounding fields. A coin that has been protected from circulation and retains strong original luster can be worth considerably more than an ordinary worn example. PCGS reports that high-grade 1965 quarters can bring significant premiums, with exceptional mint state examples selling for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Its Coinfax page records an auction result of $12,650 for a very high-grade 1965 quarter sold in 2005. PCGS. But remember, this is not the value of a normal circulated quarter. This distinction is extremely important for anyone searching through an old coin collection. A coin's auction record is not the same thing as the value of every example from the same year. If your 1965 quarter is in fine condition, it has been circulated. You may see considerable wear on Washington's portrait and the eagle on the reverse. The coin could still be an interesting piece of history, but it should not be valued like a spectacular mint state specimen. Now let's talk about varieties. The 1965 Washington quarter has several recognized die varieties. PCGS lists double die obverse varieties and a double die reverse variety. These varieties can attract collectors because the doubling is created during the die making process and can produce visible differences in lettering or design elements. PCGS. This is where your ordinary looking quarter can become much more interesting. If you have a 1965 quarter, don't simply look at the date. Examine the lettering, the numbers, and major design details under good lighting. A genuine double die is different from ordinary machine doubling, scratches, damage, or post-mint distortion. Another interesting category is the 1965 Special Mint Set Quarter. San Francisco produced 2,360,000 quarters for the 1965 Special Mint Set. These coins were not ordinary circulation strikes. They can have sharper details and special surfaces that make them attractive to collectors. PCGS now identifies these pieces as special strikes or SMS specimens. PCGS. This is another reason why two 1965 quarters can look similar at first but have dramatically different collectible interest. Now let's talk about the edge. The edge of a 1965 quarter can tell you something important about its composition. A normal 1965 clad quarter has a copper-colored layer visible on the edge because of its three-layer construction. Earlier silver quarters generally have a more uniform silver-colored edge. This is one of the easiest ways to distinguish a 1965 clad quarter from an older silver Washington quarter. And here's an important warning. A 1965 quarter is not supposed to be a normal circulating silver quarter. Because the transition from silver to clad coinage happened in this period, genuine transitional errors or unusual pieces can attract major collector attention. But these should always be authenticated before anyone assumes a spectacular value. If you believe your 1965 quarter has an unusual composition, an error, or an unusual variety, do not clean it. Cleaning can damage the original surfaces and reduce collector value. Never polish an old coin simply because you want it to look shiny. Collectors generally prefer original surfaces. So what is a realistic value for a 1965 quarter in circulated fine condition? For a normal circulated example, the value is generally modest, often close to face value or a small premium depending on the market and exact condition. PCGS specifically describes ordinary circulated 1965 quarters as common rather than rare. PCGS. But if the coin has a recognized double die, a significant minting error, exceptional toning, or another unusual characteristic, the situation can change dramatically. And if the coin is an exceptionally high-grade example, auction records demonstrate that values can reach into the thousands of dollars. That is the key lesson with this coin: the date alone does not make it rare. The 1965 quarter is valuable as a piece of American history because it marks the transition away from silver circulating quarters. But from a collector's perspective, the real premium comes from rarity, condition, varieties, errors, and eye appeal. So if you have one at home, take a close look. Check the date. Check the surfaces. Check the edge. Look carefully for unusual doubling. Look for strong original luster if the coin appears uncirculated. And most importantly, do not assume that the missing mint mark means your coin is an error. For regular 1965 quarters, the lack of a mint mark is normal because of the temporary mint mark suspension. The 1965 quarter is one of those coins that teaches us an important lesson about coin collecting. Sometimes a coin becomes interesting not because billions were not produced, but because it represents a major historical change. More than 1.8 billion regular 1965 quarters were produced, yet exceptional examples can still command substantial prices because collectors compete for quality, varieties, and special pieces. PCGS. So, if your 1965 Washington quarter is circulated and in fine condition, don't expect it to automatically be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. A realistic ordinary market value may be around face value to a few dollars, depending on the exact condition and buyer demand. But if your coin has a confirmed collectible variety or significant mint error, its value could be much higher. And remember, today's auction market can change. A coin's final selling price depends on authentication, grading, eye appeal, rarity, provenance, and the competition between bidders at the time of sale. So before selling a supposedly rare 1965 quarter, consider having an unusual example examined by a reputable coin dealer or professional grading service. Now here's the question for you. Do you have a 1965 Washington quarter in your collection, and does yours have anything unusual about it? Have you found doubling, an unusual edge, strange coloring, or a coin that looks completely different from other 1965 quarters? Tell us in the comments what you found, because your coin might be more interesting than you think. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Coin Study, like the video, share it with another coin collector, and turn on the notification bell for more United States coin values, rare dates, mint marks, varieties, errors, and auction market discoveries. Your next old quarter could be sitting in a drawer, an inherited collection, or even an ordinary jar of coins. The question is, will you recognize it when you find it?